Sign the papers and disappear, or I will ruin your father's hospital and make sure you never practice medicine again. Victoria's voice was like ice, cutting through the silence of the massive office. I stared at the desk, my hands shaking as I looked at the glossy photos she had thrown in front of me. They showed my husband. Damon, the man I loved more than life itself, in bed with another woman. My chest felt tight, my heart breaking into a million pieces as I recognized his face, his dark curly hair, and the cold expression I thought he only showed to his enemies. The ink on the divorce contract was dry, waiting for my signature to erase 3 years of marriage. Victoria smiled, a cruel, triumphant look on her face, knowing she had won. I could feel the cold leather of the chair beneath me, the hum of the air conditioning, and the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner, each sound mocking my misery. I picked up the pen, my knuckles turning white as the cold blue light of the office reflected off the mahogany desk. We had built a life together, or so I thought, but the proof of his betrayal was staring right back at me. There was no explanation, no apology, just the cold reality that I was nothing to him but a middle-class girl he had grown tired of. I signed my name on the dotted line, the letters looking jagged and broken, just like my spirit. I did not say a word. I did not shed a tear in front of his toxic mother, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me collapse. I stood up, left the ring on the table, and walked out into the pouring rain, leaving my life behind. The glass doors of the building closed behind me, sealing off the warmth, leaving me alone with the storm. The rain was cold, washing over my face as I walked down the grand steps of the estate, my mind spinning in a dark void. I had nothing left, my pride shattered, my career threatened, and the man I trusted with my soul exposed as a liar. I got into my old sedan, my hands trembling on the steering wheel, staring at the headlights cutting through the dark storm. I wanted to scream, to drive to his office and demand to know why, but the threat to my father's life work was too real. Victoria had the power to destroy us overnight, and I could not let my father suffer for my mistakes. The sound of the windshield wipers was a rhythmic, agonizing reminder of the time passing, ticking away the seconds of my ruined life. Suddenly, a dark SUV pulled up next to my car, blocking my way. A tall man in a black coat stepped out, holding an umbrella, and knocked on my window. It was Victor. Victoria's personal fixer and lawyer, the man who handled her dirty work. I rolled down the window, my eyes cold, my body freezing as he looked at me with a smirk. Victoria wanted to make sure you understood the rules, Victor said, his voice low and threatening. He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope, tossing it onto the passenger seat. This is a check for $1 million, a gift for your silence. If you ever contact Damon, if you ever tell him the truth, or try to come back to the city, we will know. And your father's hospital will burn to the ground, legally and financially. Take the money and run, doctor. I looked at the envelope, then back at Victor's smug face. The anger inside me burned through the grief, a sudden, fierce fire. I grabbed the envelope, tore it in half, and then in half again, throwing the pieces directly into his face. Tell Victoria she can keep her dirty money, I spat, my voice steady and venomous. I am leaving, but not because of her bribes. I am leaving because my husband is a monster. Tell her I hope she rots in her empty mansion. I rolled up the window, slammed the car into gear, and drove away, leaving Victor standing in the rain, the shredded pieces of the check scattered on the wet asphalt. I did not look back, but I had no idea that the real shock was yet to come. That night, in a cheap motel room on the edge of the metropolis, I sat on the bathroom floor, staring at a plastic stick. 2 pink lines, bold and clear, stared back at me. I was pregnant. I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle a sob. A child. Damon's child was growing inside me. The timing was a cruel joke, a perfect, agonizing irony. I had just signed away my marriage, escaped a toxic family, and now I carried the heir to the billionaire empire. I gripped the edge of the sink, my mind racing as the cold realization set in. If Victoria found out, she would take my baby away. If Damon found out, he would think I was using the child for his money. I had to run, far away, where they could never find us. I decided to change my name, pack my bags, and cross the sea to a rainy city where I could start over. Meanwhile, back in the city, the heavy oak doors of the penthouse slammed open. Damon walked in, his eyes searching the dark, empty living room. Elena, he called out, his voice echoing off the bare walls. There was no answer. He walked into the bedroom, only to find the closets cleared, the drawers open and empty. The jewelry he had bought her was gone, except for the diamond engagement ring sitting on the nightstand. His heart hammered against his ribs, a cold, suffocating panic rising in his throat. He pulled out his phone, dialing her number, but a robotic voice informed him that the line was disconnected. He walked to the window, looking down at the streetlights below, feeling a sudden, terrifying sense of isolation. "She's gone." "Damon," a voice said from the doorway. Damon turned to see his mother. Victoria, standing there, her face a mask of fake pity. She walked into the room, holding a document in her hand. "I tried to tell you she was only after our name, but you wouldn't listen. She came to my office today, demanded a payout, and signed the divorce papers. She took a check for $5 million and left." She handed him the paper, showing Elena's signature at the bottom. Damon stared at the signature, his face turning pale. It was her handwriting, the same elegant curves he had seen on 100 love notes. But it did not make sense. "No," Damon whispered, his voice cracking. "Elena would never do this. She doesn't care about money. You did something to her." He glared at his mother, his chest rising and falling in heavy, angry breaths. But Victoria stood ground, her eyes cold and unwavering. "The bank records don't lie. Damon." The money was transferred, and she walked out. "She was never the woman you thought she was. Accept it." Damon fell to his knees, the divorce papers slipping from his fingers. The world seemed to stop, the silence in the apartment pressing down on him like a physical weight. He refused to believe it, but the proof was right in front of him. She had signed the paper. She had left the ring. She had disappeared without a single word, leaving him alone in the dark. The love that had warmed his cold life was gone, replaced by a deep, bitter void. From that night on, the warmth in Damon's eyes died. He threw himself into his work, turning his family's empire into a ruthless machine, his heart turning to stone. He worked late into the night, his office the only lit window in the corporate tower, a beacon of cold, unyielding ambition. Months passed, and Damon's grief turned into an obsessive search. He could not accept the silence. He hired the best private investigators, demanding they find Elena. He spent sleepless nights looking at her empty side of the bed, the memories of her smile torturing his mind. He drove to her old neighborhood, a modest district on the edge of the city, hoping to find a clue. He stopped his luxury car in front of her old apartment building, the bricks worn, the windows dark. He walked up the narrow stairs, his heart pounding with a desperate, fragile hope. He knocked on the door, but a stranger opened it. It was a young woman, looking at him with confusion. "Can I help you?" she asked. Damon cleared his throat, his voice tight. "I am looking for Elena. The doctor who lived here." The woman shook her head. "She left months ago. I moved in right after she cleared the place." Damon pressed, his hands clenching into fists. "Did she leave a forwarding address? A letter? Anything?" The woman sighed, looking at him with a mix of pity and annoyance. "No. Nothing. Actually, the landlord said she was in a hurry. She threw away almost everything. I found a box of old photos and letters in the trash bin downstairs. They were all torn up, pictures of some guy, and letters. She didn't want any of it. It looked like she was erasing her past. I'm sorry, but she's gone." Damon's breath caught, the words hitting him like physical blows. She had thrown away their photos. She had torn up his letters. She had erased him. The final shred of hope inside him died, replaced by a cold, dark certainty. His mother was right. Elena had left him, taken the money, and destroyed every memory of their love. He walked back to his car, his movements slow, his face expressionless. He would stop searching. He would stop caring. If she wanted him dead to her, he would make sure his heart was dead to the world. Across the ocean, in a quiet, rainy city, the doors of a small pediatric clinic opened. I walked in, holding the hand of my 5-year-old son. Leo. He was the center of my universe, the only good thing that had come from my broken past. He looked up at me, his gray eyes bright, his curly dark hair bouncing as he walked. He had his father's eyes, his father's hair, and the same proud, stubborn stance that used to make me smile. Every time I looked at him, I felt a pang of sorrow, but also a fierce, protective love. I had raised him alone, working double shifts at the hospital, building my reputation as a pediatric doctor under a new name. The street outside was wet with rain, reflecting the neon lights of the shops, a cold contrast to the warmth I tried to create for my son. "Mom, can we build the Lego castle tonight?" Leo asked, his voice high and excited. I smiled down at him, bending to wipe a smudge of dirt from his cheek. Of course we can, sweetie. Just let mommy finish her rounds, okay? He nodded, running off to the play corner where the clinic kept toys for the patients. I watched him go, my heart swelling. I had kept him safe. Victoria and Damon had no idea he existed, and that was the way it had to stay. He is growing so fast. Elena, a gentle voice said from behind me. I turned to see Dr. Christian Knight, my colleague and the clinic's pediatric surgeon. Christian was a kind, patient man with warm blue eyes and a soft smile. He had been my rock for the last 3 years, helping me adjust to the clinic, and always keeping an eye on Leo when I was busy. Christian walked over, holding 2 cups of warm coffee. He handed one to me, his fingers brushing mine. You look tired. Elena. You've been working too hard. I took the cup, breathing in the warm aroma. I'm fine. Christian. Just the usual shift. Thank you for the coffee. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a quiet, unspoken affection. You know, you don't have to carry everything alone. I'm always here. Leo loves spending time with me, and I really enjoy being part of your lives. I looked down at my coffee, feeling a familiar, heavy guilt. Christian was a wonderful man, and any woman would be lucky to have him. But my heart was a locked room, the key thrown away 5 years ago in the rain. I could not love him, not when the ghost of Damon still haunted my dreams, and not when Leo's face reminded me of the husband who had betrayed me. I appreciate it. Christian, more than you know, I said softly, keeping my voice gentle but firm. But my focus is entirely on Leo and my patients right now. Christian smiled, a look of quiet disappointment in his eyes, but he nodded. I understand. I'm not going anywhere. Elena. I can wait. Days turned into weeks, and the routine of my quiet life continued. But the peace I had built was about to be shattered. In the high-rise offices of the city's business district, Damon sat at a conference table, looking out at the rainy streets. He had arrived in our city for a major corporate acquisition, his presence commanding, his attitude cold and demanding. He was accompanied by his close business partner, Sebastian, who had brought his 6-year-old daughter, Chloe, on the trip. Damon's mind was strictly on business, his eyes scanning the financial sheets. Suddenly, Sebastian's phone rang. He answered it, his face turning pale within seconds. What do you mean she collapsed? Sebastian gasped, his voice trembling. Damon looked up, his sharp eyes narrowing. Sebastian hung up, panic writing itself across his features. Damon, it's Chloe. She's at the hotel, she has a high fever and collapsed. The hotel doctor says it's serious, we need to get her to a clinic immediately. Damon stood up, his maternal instincts, though long buried, showing in his quick action. We take my car. Now. I know the top private pediatric clinic in this district. Let's go. They rushed out of the building, the tires of the luxury sedan screeching on the wet asphalt as Damon drove through the rain, his face set in a grim expression. He did not know that fate was pulling him directly toward the past he had tried so hard to forget. The clinic doors burst open, and Sebastian rushed in, carrying the limp body of his daughter. Help! My daughter collapsed, he screamed. I was at the reception desk, writing a chart. Hearing the panic, I dropped the pen and ran forward. Put her on the gurney, quickly. I commanded, my medical instincts taking over. As Sebastian laid the little girl down, I checked her pulse, my mind focused entirely on the patient. But then, another figure stepped into the clinic lobby. He was tall, wearing a dark designer coat, his presence filling the room with a cold, heavy aura. I looked up, and the world stopped. My breath caught in my throat, the air leaving my lungs. It was Damon. Damon froze, his gray eyes widening as he locked eyes with me. The color drained from his face, his mouth opening slightly in sheer disbelief. 5 years of silence, 5 years of anger and grief, collided in a single, silent second. Elena, he whispered, his voice shaking, a raw, emotional sound that shattered the quiet of the clinic. I stared at him, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. The pain, the betrayal, the memory of the photos, all of it rushed back, suffocating me. But I could not fall apart. Not now. Christian. I called out, my voice tight as I forced myself to look away from Damon. Christian ran out of the treatment room, taking the gurney. I need to treat this child, I said, my voice cold and professional as I looked at Sebastian. Please wait in the lobby. I did not look at Damon again. I turned my back on him and pushed the gurney into the treatment room, closing the door behind me, leaving him standing in the lobby, stunned. Damon stood completely still, his hands shaking. He looked at the closed door, his mind spinning. She was here. Elena. The woman who had taken $5 million and disappeared. The woman who had ruined his life. She was a doctor here. She looked different, more mature, but her eyes were the same, filled with a cold, distant pain that he did not understand. Why did she look at him with such hatred? She was the one who left. As he paced the lobby, his heart racing, the door to the play corner opened. A little boy walked out, holding a toy car. He had dark curly hair, gray eyes, and a proud, upright stance. He stopped, looking up at Damon with a curious expression. Damon stopped pacing. He looked down at the boy. His breath caught. The boy had his eyes. The exact shade of gray. He had his curly hair, his jawline, his proud stance. It was like looking at a miniature version of himself in a mirror. Damon's heart skipped a beat, a sudden, terrifying realization hitting him like lightning. Who are you? Damon whispered, taking a step toward the boy, his voice trembling. The boy did not look afraid. He stood tall, looking at Damon with a serious expression. I'm Leo, he said, his voice clear. I'm waiting for my mommy. Before Damon could say another word, the treatment room door opened. I walked out, my face pale. I saw Damon standing near Leo, his hand reaching out toward my son. Panic, hot and fierce, surged through my veins. I rushed forward, grabbing Leo and pulling him behind my back, shielding him from Damon's view. Leo, go back to the playroom. Now! I ordered, my voice shaking. Leo looked at me, then at Damon, and nodded, running back inside. Damon stared at me, his gray eyes filled with a sudden, desperate intensity. He took a step closer, his voice a low, dangerous whisper. Elena, who is that boy? He is my son, I said, my voice cold as ice, my eyes staring directly into his. And he has nothing to do with you. Damon's jaw clenched, his chest rising and falling. He has my eyes. Elena. He has my hair. He is 5 years old. Do the math. He is my son, isn't he? I felt the walls closing in. I could not lie, not when the truth was written so clearly on Leo's face. But I would not let him take my child. He is my son, I repeated, my voice trembling with anger. You signed the papers. Damon. You let me go. You chose your life, and I chose mine. Leave us alone. We need to talk. Now. Damon grabbed my wrist, his grip firm but gentle, his eyes pleading. I looked at his hand, then at the staff watching us. I could not make a scene in the clinic. Fine, I spat, pulling my wrist away. In my office. I led him into my private office, closing the door and locking it. The silence in the room was suffocating. I stood behind my desk, using it as a barrier between us. Damon stood near the door, looking at me like he was seeing a ghost. Why did you do it? Elena? Damon asked, his voice cracking with emotion. Why did you take the money and run? Why did you keep my son from me for 5 years? Did you hate me that much? I stared at him, a bitter, dry laugh escaping my lips. Take the money? Keep your son from you? Damon, do you think I am stupid? You are the one who cheated on me. You are the one who threw me away. Damon frowned, his expression turning into one of utter confusion. What are you talking about? I never cheated on you. I loved you. I searched for you for months. Don't lie to me. I screamed, my anger finally exploding. I reached into my desk drawer, pulling out a dusty envelope I had kept for 5 years. I threw it across the desk. Look at them. Your mother gave these to me. She showed me what you were doing while I was working late at the clinic. Damon picked up the envelope, his fingers trembling as he pulled out the photos. He stared at them, his face turning from pale to a deep, angry red. This is fake, he whispered, his voice filled with horror. This is the hotel room from my business trip to the capital, but I was alone. This woman, she was Victoria's assistant. She came to deliver papers. I was asleep, she must have put something in my drink. When I woke up, the papers were signed, but I didn't. Elena. I swear to God. I never touched her. This was a setup. Victoria's personal photographer took these photos to break us. Look at the angle, look at how I am completely unconscious. I looked at him, my heart stopping. His eyes were filled with a raw, genuine panic that could not be faked. I leaned forward, looking closely at the photo. Damon was right. His eyes were closed, his head resting unnaturally against the pillow, his body limp. It was not a passionate embrace. It was a staged photo of a drugged man. My hand flew to my mouth, the truth hitting me like a physical blow. But Victoria said, she said you wanted a divorce. She said you agreed to it. No. Damon shouted, his eyes wide. She told me you wanted the divorce. She showed me a contract, signed by you, showing you took a $5 million payout from our family bank account. She said you married me for the money and ran. I never took a penny. I cried, tears finally spilling over my cheeks. I tore up the check her fixer Victor gave me. I threw it in his face. I left with nothing. Damon. I lived in a cheap motel. I worked 3 jobs to buy formula for Leo. I never took your money. Damon stared at me, the truth finally crashing down on him like a tidal wave. The photos, the contract, the payout, all of it was a lie. A sick, twisted game played by his mother to tear them apart. He had spent 5 years hating the woman he loved, believing she had sold their marriage, while she had been raising his son in poverty, believing he was a cheating monster. The room seemed to spin around him. The weight of 5 lost years, the memory of his empty penthouse, the sight of his son playing with cheap toys, all of it pressed down on his chest. He looked at my tear-stained face, the realization of what they had lost breaking his spirit. Damon's knees buckled. He collapsed onto the office floor, his hands covering his face as he began to sob. It was a loud, agonizing sound, the cry of a man who had realized he had lost everything that mattered. My son, Damon gasped through his tears, his shoulders shaking. I missed his first steps. I missed his first words. I let you suffer, because I believed her. I'm sorry. Elena. I'm so sorry. I watched him kneel on the floor, his proud, billionaire exterior completely shattered. The anger inside me began to melt, replaced by a deep, aching sorrow. We had both been victims. We had both been betrayed by the woman who was supposed to protect him. I walked around the desk, slowly, and knelt down in front of him. I did not touch him, but the distance between us felt smaller. Damon, I whispered, my voice trembling. He looked up, his face wet with tears, his eyes pleading. Please. Elena, let me be a father to him. Let me make this right. I will destroy everyone who did this to us. I swear it. Damon stood up, his face hardening as he wiped the tears from his eyes. The broken man was gone, replaced by a cold, vengeful figure. He pulled out his phone, his voice low and dangerous as he called his head of security. Find Victor. Bring him to my office in the city. And call a board meeting for tomorrow morning. I want Victoria stripped of every share, every title, and banned from the corporate building. Now. He hung up, looking at me with a soft, pleading expression. I have to go back to the city to finish this. Elena. But I will return. I will not lose you again. The next morning, the corporate headquarters of the Damon Group was in chaos. Victoria walked into the boardroom, her head held high, only to find Damon sitting at the head of the table, surrounded by lawyers and security guards. What is the meaning of this? Damon? Victoria demanded, her voice sharp. Why did you call a board meeting without my permission? Damon did not stand up. He looked at her with a cold, dead expression. Your permission is no longer required. Victoria. You are fired. And you are being stripped of all your shares for corporate fraud. Victoria laughed, a high, dismissive sound. You can't do that. I am your mother. Damon threw the fake divorce papers, the fake payout contracts, and the photos onto the table. You lied to me for 5 years. You threatened my wife, you faked evidence, and you kept me from my son. You are lucky I am not sending you to prison. Security, escort her out. She is banned from this building, and from my life. If you ever contact Elena, or my son Leo, I will make sure you spend the rest of your days in a jail cell. Get out. Victoria's face turned pale, the realization that she had lost her power, her money, and her son hitting her all at once. She looked at the board members, but they all looked away. The guards grabbed her arms, dragging her out of the room as she screamed Damon's name. Damon did not look back. 2 days later, the rain in our city had stopped, the sun breaking through the clouds. I stood in the clinic courtyard, watching Leo play. Christian stood next to me, holding a cup of tea. He looked at me, his expression quiet. "He is back, isn't he?" Christian asked softly. I nodded. Yes. The truth, it wasn't what I thought. His mother lied to both of us. Christian smiled, a sad, gentle look in his eyes. He reached out, touching my hand. "I'm glad you found the truth. Elena. I always knew there was a wall around your heart. I just hope, whatever you choose, you are happy. You and Leo." "Thank you. Christian," I said, my voice warm. "You have been an amazing friend. I will never forget what you did for us." He nodded, stepping back as a luxury sedan pulled up to the clinic gates. Damon stepped out, wearing a casual shirt, his face relaxed, his eyes searching for us. He walked into the courtyard, stopping a few feet away. He looked at Leo, then at me, his expression hopeful. Leo stopped playing and looked at Damon. He looked at me, then walked over to Damon, holding up his toy car. "Do you want to play?" Leo asked. Damon knelt down on the grass, his eyes filling with tears, but he smiled. "I would love to play." "Leo." I watched them, the father and son, their profiles matching perfectly under the warm sun. The path ahead would not be easy, and the wounds of 5 years would take time to heal. But as Damon looked up at me, his eyes promising a lifetime of devotion, I knew that the silence was finally over, and our family was ready to begin again. Wait, the story did not end there. Every single day was a battle, a slow, painful process of putting the shattered pieces of our lives back together. Damon did not return to his massive city penthouse. Instead, he rented a modest apartment just 3 blocks away from my clinic. He wanted to show me, and his son, that he was here to stay. He did not push, he did not demand my love, but he was always there, waiting outside the clinic gates every evening just to see Leo smile. One afternoon, the rain began to pour again, the heavy drops splashing against the glass window of my clinic office. I looked up from my files and saw Damon standing under a small umbrella near the street corner. He was waiting for Leo to finish his school session, his coat completely wet, his face pale from the cold. He looked so different from the arrogant, untouchable billionaire I once married. He was just a father, desperate to catch a glimpse of his son. My heart softened, a warm, unfamiliar feeling spreading through my chest. I grabbed my coat, walked down the stairs, and pushed open the clinic doors. I walked out into the rain, stopping a few feet away from him. Damon looked up, his gray eyes widening in surprise as he saw me standing there. "Elena," he said, his voice a low, raspy whisper. "You shouldn't be out in the rain. You will catch a cold." I looked at his wet hair, the drops of water running down his face. "You are the one standing in the storm." "Damon," I said softly. "Come inside. Leo is still finishing his drawings, and the coffee machine in the lobby is warm." Damon's lips trembled, a soft, emotional smile breaking across his face. He nodded, his eyes shining with a deep, silent gratitude. "Thank you." "Elena," he whispered, his voice heavy with emotion. As we walked back into the clinic together, the distance between us felt smaller, a tiny, fragile bridge building over the canyon of 5 lost years. We sat in the warm lobby, the scent of coffee filling the room, while Leo ran over, showing Damon his drawing of a big blue house with 3 people standing in the yard. Damon looked at the drawing, his hand trembling as he traced the outline of the figures, his eyes filled with a quiet, desperate hope. But the ghost of the past was still watching us. The very next day, my phone buzzed on the desk. It was an unknown number. I answered it, my heart stopping as a familiar, cold voice echoed through the receiver. "Do you think you've won, Elena?" Victoria hissed, her voice filled with a venomous, desperate rage. "Do you think Damon's little games can erase 30 years of my work? You are nothing but a parasite. Enjoy your little family while you can, because I will make sure the name of Damon Group is dragged through the mud before I let you have a single cent." I clenched my fist, the anger inside me rising, cold and unwavering. "You have no power anymore, Victoria," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "You are alone in your empty mansion. Damon knows the truth. Leo knows his father. And you are nothing but a memory we are erasing. Do not call this number again." I hung up the phone, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps, refusing to let her threats shake the peace we were building. When Damon arrived that evening, I told him about the call. His face hardened, his gray eyes turning into chips of dark ice. He did not say a word, but he picked up his phone, dialing his legal team immediately. "This is Damon," he said, his voice a cold, calculating whisper. "Initiate the full forensic audit of Victoria's personal accounts. I want every single transaction she made in the last 10 years investigated. If she spent a single dollar of corporate funds on her personal fixers, or on fabricated documents, I want her indicted. No mercy." He hung up the phone, looking at me with a soft, protective gaze. He reached out, his hand stopping just inches from my cheek, giving me the space to pull away if I wanted. I did not move. He gently brushed a stray lock of hair behind my ear, his touch warm and familiar. "She will never hurt you again, Elena," he promised, his voice filled with a fierce, unyielding determination. "I will build a fortress around this family, and no one will ever tear us apart again." Weeks turned into months, and the legal battle between Damon and Victoria became a public storm. But inside our quiet home, the war was distant. Leo grew closer to his father every day, learning how to build complex Lego models and listening to Damon's stories about the sea. Christian Knight slowly withdrew, his presence at the clinic remaining professional and kind, but he kept his distance, respecting the bond that was rebuilding. For Leo's 5th birthday, Damon wanted to throw a massive party in a 5-star hotel, but I refused. I told him Leo did not need luxury, he needed his parents. So we held a small party in our tiny garden. Damon arrived carrying a box that was almost as big as he was. Leo's eyes went wide. "Is that for me?" he asked. Damon smiled, kneeling in the grass. "Open it, champ." Inside was a complete set of building blocks, enough to build a whole town. But instead of playing with the blocks alone, Leo grabbed Damon's hand. "Daddy, build with me." Damon looked at me, his eyes shining with tears, realizing that the best gift he could ever give his son was his presence. One evening, as the sun set over the rainy city, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and purple, Damon and I sat on the clinic balcony. Leo was asleep in the next room, his breathing slow and peaceful. Damon looked out at the city lights, his face relaxed, the cold lines of his billionaire persona completely gone. "I spent 5 years looking at the stars, Elena," Damon said softly, his voice barely louder than the breeze. "And every night, I wondered why you left. I hated myself. I hated the money. I hated the world. But now, looking at you, I realized that the stars were just waiting for the storm to pass." I looked at him, his profile sharp against the twilight, his gray eyes reflecting the soft glow of the lamps. The anger was gone. The pain was just a shadow. I reached out, my fingers slowly wrapping around his hand. Damon froze, looking down at our joined hands, his breath catching in his throat. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with a sudden, beautiful hope. "I'm still angry about the lost years, Damon," I whispered, my voice sweet but steady. "But I don't want to live in the dark anymore. Let's build the house from Leo's drawing." Damon's eyes filled with tears, but he did not sob this time. He just smiled, a bright, genuine smile that warmed my heart, and pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me like a shield against the world. The silence was finally over, and our new story was just beginning. We stood there, holding each other as the city hummed below, knowing that whatever came next, we would face it together. Wait. Damon's mother did not go down without a fight. A few days later, the first news articles appeared online. They were filled with nasty rumors, accusing me of being a gold digger who had hidden a child to blackmail the family. I stared at the phone screen, my heart dropping. The internet was cruel, and the comments sections were already filling with hate. Damon walked into the office, his face calm, almost too calm. He took the phone from my hand and shut off the screen. "I told you, Elena. I will protect you," he said, his voice a low, soothing tone. "We are holding a press conference this afternoon. You don't have to say a word. Just stand by my side." That afternoon, the press room was packed with reporters, the cameras flashing like lightning. I stood next to Damon, holding Leo's hand. Damon stepped up to the microphone, his presence commanding the room. He looked directly at the cameras, his eyes cold and sharp. 5 years ago, my family was torn apart by lies and manipulation, Damon said, his voice clear and resonant. My wife, Elena, did not leave me for money. She was forced to leave to protect her family from threats. She raised our son alone, in silence, without asking for a single cent. The rumors you are reading today are the desperate lies of a woman who has lost her corporate power. I am here to state, clearly, that Elena is my wife. Leo is my sole heir, and any publication that prints a single lie about them will face the full weight of my legal team. We are a family, and we are here to stay. The room erupted into questions, but Damon did not wait. He took my hand, picked up Leo, and walked off the stage. The reporters shouted, but their voices were drowned out by the sound of our steps. As we walked out into the sunlight, I looked at Damon, feeling a deep, profound sense of relief. He had stood up for us. He had cleared my name. We drove back to our small home, the city traffic buzzing around us. As we parked, Leo looked up from the back seat. "Mommy. Daddy, can we go to the park?" he asked. Damon looked at me, a question in his eyes. I smiled and nodded. "Yes. Leo, let's go to the park." We walked down the grassy hill, the sun warm on our faces. Leo ran ahead, chasing a butterfly, his laughter echoing through the air. Damon and I walked side by side, our fingers intertwined. The storm had finally passed, the lies were exposed, and the silence was replaced by the laughter of our son. We had lost 5 years, but we had the rest of our lives to make it right. And as I looked at my husband, I knew that the love we shared was stronger than any lie his mother could ever write. Our family was complete, and we were finally home.